interesting episodes for those who wants to know more about flying and aircrafts and all the safety regards concerning flying. I think you're going to have to tune into this episode to know more about what goes on inside the aircraft, and we're very much delighted to have joining us for this very special interview. We have Captain Mahmoud Faisal, who is a safety expert in Civil Aviation Ministry. Thank you very much for joining us, and it's always a pleasure, of course, to have you. Let's start off by talking about the main general standards and requirements, whether there's psychological or any kind of other factors needed to become a pilot.
Yes. First of all, if anyone wants to be a pilot, he must he or she must start after the start of studying of aviation will be after the secondary school, and they will go to any civil aviation school, even in Egypt or any other country. The most important thing is to pass the medical check. Because the medical check is very important for all initial pilots to start studying to be a student pilots. After the medical check, there is an English exam, especially here in Egypt, because our Civil Aviation Academy in Egypt is one of the most important civil academies. So it has a special procedure for joining the studying in aviation to be a pilot. After medical check, they are starting to English exam. After passing English exam, there is an interview to check the behavior of the student to can be start to be a student pilot. Then after joining the academy, in academy there is a global course, and they starting to study. First of all, it will be ground school, and then simulator, and then start to join small aircrafts, and it will be steps till be graduated to be commercial pilots can join the market and can start to fly with jet aircrafts.
Yes. Well, let's take it from the point where they are qualified to start to fly or being commercial pilots. That procedure itself requires a lot of other qualifications. For instance, the number of hours that you would need to fly in order to become a pilot. There are 3 other stages before that, being a co-pilot or a first officer or something like that. So tell us, when or how many hours is it required for you to be a professional pilot who can fly international long-hour flights?
Yes, here in Egypt Air, for example, Egypt Air joining a 0-hour or fresh graduated pilots. But in all the other countries in all the world, they are set a special regulations for each country or each civil aviation. It's different between many countries. Okay, but now the minimum standard to fly jet aircraft is 200 hours in the same jet aircraft. For example, Airbus 320 or Boeing 737. Boeing 737.
Yeah.
This is for the beginning to start to be a pilot. But where will be to pass these hours? It will be we have 2 different ways now. Some pilots can do the studying or the preparing to be a co-pilots, first officers, in other countries or civil aviation academies, or in the same company, they are training the pilot to be ready to be first officer.
Well, that's very interesting from what you said. So what I understand is that pilots who fly different aircrafts are different. For instance, those who fly Airbus are not the same who fly the Boeing 777. Why is that? Is it technical? Is there a technical reason behind why they, wouldn't mix different aircrafts?
Yes, the flying is a very specific job. And it needs a more professional in the same category or in the same aircraft. So the civil aviation regulations in ICAO or in IATA is set the specific category to fly. If you even if I will fly an Airbus 320, I can't fly Airbus 330 or 380. It's the same company but in another category. I can't fly it till I have a special training. flying, because it's something to a high level of safety margin and a high level of training, because the aircraft flying is a very hard
Yes,
a
indeed.
very hard job,
Yes.
and it needs to be more professional in the same aircraft.
Yeah, it's a very responsible job because you're
Yes.
in charge of lives of hundreds. Speaking of ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, let's talk about the main safety requirements that are required under or in accordance with ICAO.
Yeah, for choosing pilots,
Yes,
or
for choosing pilots.
for
Yeah,
pilots?
for choosing pilots, and then from that we can move to the aircraft procedures itself.
Yes.
Does it fall into any standard requirements?
Yes, for choosing pilots, we have a basics. It's in the civil aviation or in ICAO civil aviation, and they let each country to can be high level of this basic, but they cannot be low.
Yes, okay.
This basics, like we said, the professional, the medical check, and the English proficiency, because we are flying in in all the world, and the common language is English,
yeah.
and is the training. This is the basic for ICAO. But each country can set any other, or can set any high level for ours, for example, or for criteria of the medical check. We have countries. It's a simple, and we have countries it's more complicated, because they need to be sure the pilot is fit to fly, to be more comfortable.
Yes, before we move to the flight safety issue and move into the aircraft procedures itself, one last question concerning the pilots. Is there a difference between an aircraft pilot and a military pilot, and if there is, what are these differences?
This is a good question, because it's now a very famous question. It's a very big difference. We are two pilots, but we cannot fly our aircrafts.
So you have something in common that you fly, but but you don't fly the same
This
way.
is the only common thing. But the military pilots is completely different than civil aviation. I want to say something more. Even the civil aviation pilots or the military pilots, every pilot fly with any aircraft, he is a completely different than other pilot, even if he is a civil aviation pilot or a military pilot.
Okay.
Because when you want to fly any aircraft, you have to study ground school for not less than 1 month, and you have to have a simulator. Simulator will not be, it's more than 18 sessions, and it's very complicated, and it's very high standard of training. And after training, you have to be online training, not less than 200 hours.
Okay.
Then it will be, the pilot will be, he will not be a pilot, he will be a first officer or a co-pilot. He needs experience not less than 10 years, or about from 5 to 10 years, to be a pilot.
Okay.
It's very complicated training. So for this reason, the military pilots and pilots, they know very well they cannot fly each
other. It's not like in the movies. It's not like the movies where they bring people. I can fly that. Okay, let's move to the flight procedures itself and the aircraft. What are the procedures that are taken from the moment the flight takes off, or the aircraft takes off, to its landing procedure back again on ground? And I'm talking here particularly about the flight plan.
The flights is not started when the pilot will be in the aircraft. No, it's started from the dispatch or from the briefing. Okay?
Yes.
When the pilot starts his flight, it will be from the briefing room. He will know what is the weather for the flying, from departure, and the airway and the arrival, to be ready for any situation. It will be all from
Is that part of the flight plan? Is that part of the weather issue?
He will have a full briefing with weather and flight plan. The flight plan will contain the fuel and the route and the escape routes if they have any emergency, and the alternate routes, and the alternate of the aerodrome if there are any problem for the aerodrome for the destination. This is the flight plan, and the weather, to be sure it's a clear weather, or the weather is ready to fly with it, or how we will deviate if he has any problem.
Yes,
Okay?
so the weather is an important factor.
Very important.
Yeah.
This is the most important. Then after he will check the weather and the flight plan, he will brief about his aircraft. He will go to it. If the aircraft is fully ready, or it needs some preparation, special preparation from maintenance, or there is any comments for the maintenance, because we have in our aircrafts, all civil aviation aircrafts, maybe we can have comments from the maintenance, but it's not affecting the safety.
Oh, it's at the end, it's the decision of the pilot where he ticks that he's ready to take off.
Yes.
So he has to make the decision whether these technical problems are going to be affecting his duration or destination or not.
Yes, it's all the
Yeah,
the
so again,
pilot
that's
is-
responsibility and it requires experience.
Yes, it's all the pilot responsibility. No anyone, all details is just to help him. No anyone can force him or let him do anything, because whenever he signed the technical log, or whenever he signed it, the aircraft is ready to fly, so it's now his responsibility for all the safety of the aircraft. So he will not sign till he will be sure everything is okay.
Great. Well, they're at least lucky enough, because now with technology, they have a lot of equipments that can help, make everything more easy and less human error than possible. Let's talk about the navigational aid equipments. Are they different from being on the track or on the flight destination than on the ground? I know that there are different navigational equipments. It's very technical. Let's not get into them. I mean, I know there's the VORS, the ILS, and the TACAN, all these very complicated details the viewers won't really be aware of. But what can you tell us about the navigational aid equipments?
First of all, you know very well about our navigation
my father is an expert, that's why.
Now we are in high technology. We are in very high technology. We are using a GPS about 80% of our flying trip or our flying flight. The GPS in all the world now is covered most of the earth, and we always have a backup, because if at any time the GPS fail or drop down or anything, we have nav aids, like you said. I don't know if all the people can understand our nav aids, but we can explain it as a simple. These nav aids let us to join the airways to let us go from step to step till to reach our destination from our departure.
And does that require you using the satellite at some point?
Yes,
Yes,
GPS is using
yeah.
satellites, yeah.
And any other equipments that are not just entitled to the aircraft could be assisting using the satellite as well in case of emergency.
Yes, the relation between the aircraft and these equipments, transmitting and receiving. I have equipments in my aircrafts and computers, and there is a ground stations. This is the backup of the GPS or satellites. This equipment, there is a transmitting and receiving signals between the aircraft and these ground stations. If there is any problem with the satellites, the aircraft automatically will transfer to the backup and will send and receive these signals, just to make sure the aircraft is keeping on the airway from the departure to the destination, and when it arrives to the runway, it will use special equipments to let it be sure it will be safe landing on this runway, not in other runways, because now we have in all airports many runways in parallel.
Yes, exactly.
So it must be in the specific runway cleared from the ATC.
Yes, well, let's talk about another very interesting story, because that's like when, unfortunately, any accidents or emergency happens, everybody's always very concerned. I'm talking about the general public with the black boxes. Okay, let's make it clear, and of course you're the expert to tell me, but as far as I know is that they're two boxes, they're not one, and they're definitely not black. And even the information is not that important. So what can you tell us about the black boxes, or why they're called the black boxes?
Okay.
They're orange, by the way, aren't they?
Yeah, it's orange, yeah. I told you know very well. And it's not really it's not a black boxes. It's just a definition, because it's always used in an accident or
high confidential.
Yeah. For this reason, it called black boxes. But it is an orange, like we said. There are two boxes. It's not a boxes. It calls, the expression is CVR, cockpit voice recorders.
Yes.
Yeah. It's two types. One type for recording all the voice communication between the captain and the first officer, and there is another one between the flight attendant and the passengers. Why? Because in any accident or in any crash or any disaster, it is will be the reference to know what is the last
Thing that happened.
yeah, things happens. Now with the new edition of the CVRs or the cockpit voice recorders, or it is recording up to 120 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. There is another we can say machine. It is recording not the voice but the
Information
actions, all the actions from the aircraft. If the aircraft have a steep turn or a hard turn or a steep dive or whatever will happen, because after any disaster or any accident, or whenever the aircraft company, the company or civil aviation need any investigation or any asking about anything happen, they will remove this recorders and check all whatever happened for actions in the aircraft.
From there, I would like to ask you also another very important question from your field of experience, from your field of being around this specific specialization in the first place. What are the most likely causes of the accidents of aircraft? Is it more like a human error or is it a technical error? I mean, from the black boxes, possibly from what you've heard, is it most likely for it to be a technical default or human error? And human error all the way starts from when the pilot ticks, assuming that the technical deficits that are in the flight will not affect the flight, or all the way when he's flying the aircraft, if he is enforced to take a certain decision and he takes it incorrectly. What is it most likely to be nowadays, internationally?
Yeah, nowadays, in last 20 years, we will find in all accidents or disasters, the human errors is not more than 5 to 7%.
Okay.
Because the high technology and as we said before, the high level of training, no any country, no any company will let the pilot fly or the first officer, a co-pilot fly, when they are not sure he is full fit to fly and full trained. And we have another thing, every 6 months we have a special training for any first officer or any pilot to refresh all the situation if there is an emergency, because the aircraft normalize, it's always flying as a normal flight, but the training for the any abnormal or any emergency or any special situations always be in a simulator every 6 months. So the pilot is always ready
up to date with
up
what's
to date.
happening.
This is number one, and always ready for any abnormal situation. This is number one. So the human error in last 20 years, it's a specific number is from 5 to 7%.
Okay.
The high technology helped us for another thing. When we have any mistake or any problem, we can update it quickly, and we have always special bulletins and special temporary revisions and special updates to recover any problem happened from the technology. But till now, the flying as a transportation is the most safe transportation-wise, other than transportation with any cars or any special ships or something like that. This is a global.
Yes, it's more safer, and there's less or a decrease of human error throughout the years because of the sophisticated technology used. So how do you then describe the phenomena of these accidents? Can we call them more of a natural disaster cause, or is it the being too independent as a human on the technicalities for assuming that they will never err, or for assuming that they can even make decisions for you? At the end of the day, they're technical and they're very much machine oriented, but it's the pilot who has to decide at some point when he should take an otherwise decision. So if it's not the human error, and if it's very much good technology being used in technicalities, how do you explain the phenomenon of the accidents?
Yes, your question is very good, because we have another issue is very important, and in 2015, and especially the weather.
The weather.
The weather, yeah. The weather, always we are expecting it from the GPS or satellites, as we said in the briefing, but we are always facing sudden weather.
Or is it you're forced to go for it because of business issues? You cannot cancel flights. Let's put it in a more
the pilot can
concrete
take
manner.
the decision to cancel the flight.
Yes.
But if he know, sometimes we don't know the intensity of the weather, and sometimes it's changed because it's a weather. We have a wind, we have clouds, we have cumulus clouds, we have raining clouds, we have everything. Every time it always changes.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not a fix.
It's not a fixed
The technology is fixed, the training is fixed, but the weather always
The weather
changes.
is not fixed, so it's natural disaster more.
Yes, most of the disasters in 2015, it's according to the weather.
Yes, unfortunately. Let's talk about the importance of the cooperation, the contribution between the pilot and his cabin crew in ensuring and maintaining safety on the aircraft, especially in cases of emergency. Egypt Air is also one of the most professional companies with very much professional pilots and cabin crew members. Maybe you can also tell us from Egypt Air experience on how important is it to maintain stability and calmness in cases of accidents or emergencies, to ensure that there is order on the aircraft, and of course to ensure that it is safe, or the safety of the people on board.
Yes. Once any pilot joining any aircraft, but especially like you said in Egypt Air, the initial pilots and initial cabin crew have a joint training with each other to have always a simulator for any abnormal situation. What will be the passwords I will say?
Yes.
What will be the signals I will give to the crew? They will understand what the pilot.
And that
will do.
includes in cases of terrorism actions on the flight, just like the one we've seen.
In any abnormal or emergency situation, we have a joint training. We have a CRM. CRM, it's for crew requirement management.
Yes.
It's a CRM between the captain and the cockpit.
Is
crew.
that an international regulation, or is it
Yes.
always changeable, so it wouldn't be infiltrated by people who, especially those who want to go for a terrorist attempt?
It's an international and always changeable because it's always updating. And for any update, all companies and especially flag carriers companies must update the crew about any change. So they are always have a joint training.
Yes.
It's different than the separate training for each category, and they have a CRM. And we have a very important other thing before each flight. It's one of the steps to start the flight. The captain must have a briefing with the crew to tell them what he knows about the weather, to tell them what is the code between the cabin crew and the captain, if we have any terrorists, if we have any problems, if we have any something abnormal, just to be sure we will be communicating with each
on
other.
the same line.
Yes. He can tell them, tell me what the special word when you have anything, so I will not open the cockpit. This is the word between, and it's always changeable word, or changeable code. For each briefing in each air flight must be include the weather briefing, any abnormal and emergency, and special code to have two-way communication with each other.
Very interesting. And finally here, tell us about your field of experience, maybe possible instances of situations that you have faced which had, made you sort of go through a certain decision you were possibly successful in, or changed you as a person also, and how you view life as well.
Yeah, as we said before, the hardest situation will be according to the weather. So especially we are in Egypt Air, flying in South Africa, and all Africa region is a very high elevation airports. The weather is very hard. We have a raining.
The airports are a bit poor as well, technically speaking.
Yes, it's a simple airports, and it's not updating, and it's not completely equipped with the special equipment to have a landing safe. So in these airports we are using the pilot technicality and the pilot proficiency to land in these airports. It will be we have an example for Asmara airports. It's the capital of Eritrea. We were in a final, and the runway was in sight, and we are completely going to land, and even before touchdown, not less than 10 meters, the runway disappeared because the patches of fog is covered the runway.
Okay.
So for this reason, I couldn't see the runway, and I tried to immediately. The go around or
Yes.
rejected the landing in this phase is very, very critical because I am very, very close to the ground.
Yes, and then you have to go very far up again.
Yes, so the decision is very, very hard, and the action is very, very hard, and you have to do everything in your mind, the safety and the passengers, and you have to take the action because it's very important. I took the action and I rejected the landing. It was a second after leaving the runway completely covered, and the batches of fog stand on the runway, and I deviated to another runway.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
that's
the
very
runway closed
interesting.
for more than 6 hours.
Yeah, well, technically speaking, there is no problem with, changing direction in that form of landing. I mean, when you decide to take a turnaround or, just sort of roam around the airport a little bit before you want to go back again, the speed and going up so fast, I mean, when you speak about safety, are you talking about health-wise for the passengers, those with blood pressure, for instance, those with heart problems, it could affect them? Is it that difficult for you because of that reason? Or are there other reasons that made it difficult for you to decide whether you want to go back up again or just take the risk and land between the fogs?
Yes, we are always training for the levels of the thinking. For my most important thing is number one, safety, then economy, then passenger comfort, because the safety is the passengers and my life. Economy is because we are in a commercial companies. Passenger comfortables, it means when you all deviate, you can deviate to a near airport, because when they after landing they not suffer to have their transportation or something like that. But the human life is the most important. In our situation, my most important thing is the human lives. So I decided that the decision in this example was to have a high level of safety. I couldn't land in runway closed with patches of fog and it's already disappeared. I can't take the decision to land with no vision. So cancel the landing and suffering the passengers is not less than important of their human lives.
Okay, well, it was a very pleasurable interview, and it was also very interesting to know more about these kind of experience from a pilot like yourself. Most people don't really understand how difficult and complicated the procedure is, and when any accident happens, they just care about the black box. They think it's going to be the only reason that the only evidence for the aircraft. But once again, I'd like to thank you very much, Captain Mahmoud Faisal, who is a safety expert in Civil Aviation Ministry. Thank you for your time, and thank you very much for your fruitful information.
Thank you very much, and thank you for interesting about this issue, because no many people interest to tell the people about the importance of the civil aviation.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Indeed, it's a very important ministry. And this brings us also to the end of our episode of On the Hot Seat for this evening. We hope you did enjoy it, and stay tuned for more coming up on Nile International.